I'm sorry, Lorraine.
Horror fans, the wait is almost over. The Conjuring Last Rites is hitting theaters this September, and it's being billed as the final chapter in the Warren saga. But before we get to the grand finale, it's the perfect time to step back and look at the terrifying road that's led us here. Because, let's be honest, the Conjuring universe can get confusing. These movies were released out of order, bouncing from haunted dolls in the 60s to a demon nun in the 50s to family hauntings in the 70s. Trying to piece together the full story feels almost as complicated as one of Lorraine Warren's visions. That's why today we're breaking it all down. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. We're going through the Conjuring universe chronologically, film by film, from the earliest events in The Nun all the way to The Devil Made Me Do It. Along the way, we'll connect the dots between Annabelle's origins, Valak's manipulations, and the Warrens' most dangerous cases. By the end, you'll see how every piece, whether it's a cursed object, a demonic cult, or a vision from Lorraine, ties into one massive story of good versus evil. And with Last Rites on the horizon, there's no better time to revisit the dark history that shaped the Warrens' legacy. So buckle up, keep your rosary close, and let's walk through the Conjuring timeline before the final chapter arrives. The Nun, 2018. The Conjuring Universe officially begins in 1952 with The Nun, a film that not just serves as an origin story for one of the franchise's most terrifying villains, but also lays the groundwork for much of the supernatural chaos that follows. Set in post-World War II Romania, the movie pulls us into the remote Carta Monastery, a Gothic fortress that hides a darkness stretching back centuries. The story kicks off when a local farmer discovers the body of a nun who has taken her own life. This shocking incident prompts the Vatican to take notice. They dispatch Father Burke, a priest known for his experience with exorcisms, and Sister Irene, a young novice who hasn't yet taken her vows. The church suspects there's more going on than just an isolated tragedy, and as we learn, they're absolutely right. When Burke and Irene arrive, the monastery is cloaked in an eerie atmosphere of silence and dread. They quickly discover that the abbey has been plagued for centuries by an ancient evil, a demon that was first unleashed during the Dark Ages when a duke obsessed with the occult attempted to summon dark forces through a rift in the abbey's foundation. This demonic entity is none other than Valak, the demon nun, who has become the central antagonist across multiple Conjuring films. The church originally managed to seal Valak away using the blood of Christ, but the chaos of the Second World War, with bombs ripping through the abbey, reopened that rift, allowing Valak to seep back into the world. What makes The Nun particularly fascinating is how it builds Valak's mythology. Unlike most hauntings in the franchise, which target a single family or individual, this is a force tied directly to ancient evil. Valak doesn't just haunt, it manipulates, disguises, and waits for moments of weakness. By the time Burke and Irene arrive, most of the sisters of the abbey are either dead or trapped in a cycle of prayer, desperately trying to contain the evil presence within. One of the most striking elements is Valak's disguise. Instead of appearing in its true demonic form, Valak chooses the habit of a nun, which isn't just a random scare tactic. There's deep symbolism at play here. By taking on the form of a holy figure, Valak mocks faith itself. It's a perverse inversion of the sacred. The sight of a nun should bring comfort and peace, but instead, it brings terror. This blasphemous disguise also highlights one of the series' recurring themes, evil twisting what is good and sacred into something horrifying. In many ways, Valak isn't just attacking individuals, it's attacking the very idea of faith, exploiting doubt and fear where there should be trust and devotion. As Burke and Irene battle visions, attacks, and psychological manipulation within the abbey, they realize that defeating Valak requires more than prayer. The final act of the movie sees Irene come to face with the demon in its lair. Here, the blood of Christ, literally stored in a vial, becomes the key to banishing Valak once more. Irene anoints herself with it and spits the holy blood into Valak's face during a struggle, sealing the demon back into the rift. Or at least, so it seems, because The Nun leaves us with a chilling twist that echoes directly into the events of The Conjuring. The farmer who had helped them, Maurice, nicknamed Frenchie, is revealed to be possessed by Valak during the final confrontation. This possession doesn't immediately kill him. Instead, it slowly eats away at him over time. And if you've seen The Conjuring 2013, this moment is critical, because Maurice is later shown in the Warrens' lectures as one of their early documented cases of possession. Lorraine even has a terrifying vision of his fate. That single connection ties The Nun directly to the larger Conjuring narrative and sets the stage for how Valak reappears decades later in The Conjuring. So while the movie closes with Irene and Burke believing they've won, we as the audience know better. Evil doesn't die. It waits, it adapts, and it finds new hosts. And in Maurice's possession, we see the perfect seed planted for the horrors that will follow decades later. Annabelle Creation, 2017. After the sinister events of The Nun in 1952, the next chapter in the Conjuring Universe timeline takes us to 1955 with Annabelle Creation. While The Nun showed us the birth of Valak's terror, this film tells the tragic backstory of one of horror's most iconic cursed objects, the Annabelle doll. At its core, Annabelle Creation is a story about grief, desperation, and the dangers of trying to cheat death. It begins with Samuel Mullins, a doll maker, and his wife Esther, who live a peaceful life with their daughter Bee. But tragedy strikes early when Bee dies in a car accident, leaving the couple shattered. That grief is the heart of the story, because it's their desperate yearning to see their daughter again that opens the door to something far darker. The Mullins, in their grief, pray for any sign of Bee's return. They believe they receive an answer when they sense her spirit, asking for permission to inhabit one of Samuel's handmade dolls. What they don't realize is that it isn't Bee at all. It's a demonic entity, using their sorrow as bait to gain a foothold in the world. Once the invitation is given, the demon latches onto the doll, turning it into the cursed vessel that would become infamous decades later. Fast forward 12 years. The Mullins' home is open to a group of orphaned girls and a nun, Sister Charlotte. The girls move in with excitement, but almost immediately they sense something is off. There are locked rooms, unexplained noises, and of course, the doll. Janice, a young girl crippled by polio, becomes the prime target for the entity's torment. Drawn to the forbidden room, she finds Annabelle inside, and from there, the demon begins its relentless pursuit. Janice becomes vulnerable not only because of her disability, but also because of her loneliness and feelings of being a burden. Demons in the Conjuring universe rarely attack at random. They prey on fear, weakness, and despair. Janice embodies all of those, making her the perfect vessel. As the haunting intensifies, the demon uses psychological manipulation, isolating her and finally possessing her outright. The possession of Janice is the critical turning point because this is the origin of Annabelle Higgins. After escaping the Mullins' house during the climax, Janice reinvents herself with a new identity. She is later adopted, growing up to become the very same Annabelle who, years later, joins a cult and attacks the forms in Annabelle 2014. The transformation is chilling. A helpless orphan becomes the human host for the demon, creating a direct line between Annabelle Creation and the later films. The final act of the film reinforces this. The demon reveals its true power, killing Esther and terrorizing the orphans. But while Sister Charlotte and the others survive, Janice slips away, already under the demon's control. That ending shot, Janice now living under the name Annabelle Higgins, isn't just a twist, it's the connective thread that links creation directly into the next installment. The Nun, 2023. After the terrifying showdown in Romania during The Nun in 2018, the Conjuring timeline picks back up in 1956 with The Nun 2. This sequel continues Valak's story, showing how the demon didn't vanish after Sister Irene's battle in the Abbey. Instead, it grew stronger, spreading its corruption beyond Romania and proving that evil never dies, it only waits. The movie opens in France with a shocking sequence. A priest is burned alive in a church, a grim reminder that Valak is still very much at work. From the start, the movie makes it clear that this isn't a contained haunting anymore. The demon's influence has spread, and now it threatens the wider Catholic world. The church, desperate and fearful, calls upon Sister Irene once again. Though she hoped her battle with Valak was over, Irene is drawn back into the fight. This time, she's joined by Maurice, also known as Frenchie. If you remember from The Nun, Maurice was the farmer who helped Irene survive the Abbey, but he was secretly possessed by Valak during the climax. Here in The Nun 2, we see the slow and terrifying consequences of that possession. Maurice works at a boarding school in France trying to live a normal life, but the darkness inside him is festering. His possession is a brilliant narrative device because it makes him both victim and weapon, a good man being hollowed out by evil. The main storyline revolves around Irene uncovering Valak's true purpose. The demon isn't haunting at random. It's hunting down a sacred relic, the eyes of Saint Lucy, a Christian martyr. According to legend, these relics have divine power, and if Valak can consume them, it would gain unimaginable strength. This plot expands the mythology of the Conjuring universe, showing us that Valak isn't just a trickster spirit, but a calculated force searching for artifacts of power. The climax takes place at the boarding school, where Irene, with the help of Sister Deborah, faces Valak once again. The setting is perfect, a place of innocence corrupted, where children and faith collide with demonic presence. As Valak reveals itself, Irene calls upon the power of St. Lucy's relic to banish the demon. In a visually stunning moment, the blood of Christ, invoked through Irene's faith, consumes Valak in flames. It looks like victory, but anyone familiar with the Conjuring films knows this isn't the end.
Have mercy on your soul!
2014. After the origins shown in Annabelle Creation, the cursed doll resurfaces in Annabelle 2014, set in 1967. This film moves the story forward by showing how the evil attached to the doll spreads beyond the Mullins tragedy, and how a sinister cult becomes the vessel for that evil to strike again. The story centers on John and Mia Gordon, a young couple expecting their first child. Early on, John gifts Mia the vintage porcelain doll she's been wanting to complete her collection. At first, the doll is just a creepy-looking antique, but that changes when the couple is violently attacked in their home by members of a satanic cult, the Disciples of the Ram. One of the intruders is Janice, the orphan possessed by the Mullins demon in Annabelle Creation. She and her partner attempt a ritual sacrifice, and though police intervene, Janice kills herself while clutching the doll. This act effectively binds the demon to the doll, giving it a permanent vessel to latch onto. From here, Mia's life begins to spiral. Paranormal events escalate, flickering lights, moving objects, and sinister visions. The evil isn't random, it's targeted. The demon is drawn to Mia because she's vulnerable, heavily pregnant, and surrounded by fear. Demons in the Conjuring universe don't just attack physically, they manipulate emotionally, breaking people down until they're easier to possess. Mia's fear for her unborn child makes her the perfect target. The Gordons turn to their priest, Father Perez, who quickly realizes this is no ordinary haunting. He digs into the cult's background, connecting it to the Disciples of the Ram, a group devoted to summoning demonic entities. This is an important lore point because the same cult is referenced later in The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, 1981, where another occultist uses their rituals to conjure and control demons. It shows us that these hauntings aren't isolated. There's a network of dark forces working behind the scenes across decades. The climax is a battle of wills. The demon wants Mia's baby's soul, and it drives her to the brink of despair. In one harrowing moment, Mia nearly throws herself out a window to end the torment. But Evelyn, a kind bookstore owner who befriends Mia, steps in. Haunted by guilt from her past, she accidentally caused her daughter's death years before. Evelyn sees a chance for redemption. In an act of self-sacrifice, she offers her soul to save Mia and her child. Evelyn throws herself out the window, dying in Mia's place. From a thematic perspective, Evelyn's sacrifice is the mirror opposite of Janice's. Where Janice gave herself to darkness and cursed the doll, Evelyn gives herself to light and saves a family. The contrast drives home one of the franchise's biggest messages, that human choices, whether rooted in grief, guilt, or faith, are what open or close doors to evil. By the end of the film, the doll disappears, later resurfacing in an antique shop. This open ending directly connects to the Warrens' eventual involvement, as the doll finds its way into their famous occult museum. (1971) The Conjuring, 2013. By 1971, the Conjuring Universe shifts its focus from cursed objects to the central figures of the franchise, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Conjuring 2013, the film that started it all, dramatizes one of the Warrens' most famous cases, the Perron family haunting in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The movie opens with a prologue featuring Annabelle, the cursed doll we've seen across multiple films. Here, the Warrens are consulted by nurses tormented by the doll's demonic presence. It's a clever narrative move. The prologue doesn't just connect this movie to Annabelle, but also establishes the Warrens' credibility as experts in demonology. More importantly, it signals to the audience that the Warrens' cases often overlap. Every story in this universe ties back to them. The main story follows Roger and Carolyn Perron and their 5 daughters who move into a secluded farmhouse. Almost immediately, strange things begin happening. Clocks stop at 3:07 a.m. The family dog dies mysteriously, and foul odors linger in the house. As events escalate, Carolyn becomes the focal point of the haunting. She experiences bruises, sleepwalking, and eventually possession. The Warrens investigate and discover the house was once home to Bathsheba Sherman, a woman accused of witchcraft who allegedly sacrificed her child to Satan before hanging herself. Her curse was simple but horrifying. Any mother living on the property would be targeted and driven to kill her children. This curse ties directly to Carolyn, making her the new vessel for Bathsheba's evil. From a thematic standpoint, Bathsheba is a twisted mirror of Carolyn. Carolyn is a mother defined by love, protecting her daughters despite exhaustion and fear. Bathsheba, on the other hand, embodies the corruption of motherhood, turning nurturing instincts into violence and destruction. Their opposition makes the climax of the film, where Carolyn nearly murders her daughter under possession, particularly chilling. Lorraine's role in the story carries foreshadowing. Throughout the investigation, she experiences visions and psychic impressions that drain her emotionally and spiritually. At one point, she sees a vision of a dark, demonic figure, a shadowy glimpse of Valak. While The Conjuring 2 would fully reveal Valak, these moments suggest the demon was already circling the Warrens' lives. It creates a connective thread between the Harrisville case and the broader demonic battles yet to come. The exorcism that ends the film isn't performed by the church, but by Ed himself, showing the Warrens' willingness to put themselves at risk when bureaucracy slows the process. Their intervention saves Carolyn and breaks Bathsheba's hold, but the film leaves a lingering sense of unease. Evil isn't defeated permanently, it's only pushed back, waiting for the next opportunity. The Conjuring established the template for the universe: real-life inspired cases, intertwined lore, and the idea that evil is cyclical, passed down through places, objects, and people. Bathsheba's curse may have ended with Carolyn, but the shadow of Valak ensures that the Warren story is far from over.
Annabelle Comes Home 2019. Set shortly after the Warrens acquire the doll from the events of Annabelle 2014. Annabelle Comes Home shifts the spotlight to their daughter Judy and shows how evil doesn't just threaten strangers. It can find its way directly into the Warrens' home. The story begins when Ed and Lorraine lock the Annabelle doll inside their occult museum, sealing it in a glass case blessed by a priest. The Warrens are clear. Annabelle isn't just another cursed object. She's a beacon. She doesn't merely hold one demon, but acts as a conduit, attracting and amplifying other supernatural forces. Containment is the only option. The main plot unfolds when the Warrens leave town and Judy is left in the care of her babysitter, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen's curious friend, Daniela, sneaks into the house, hoping to contact her deceased father. In her grief, she opens the museum room, accidentally tampering with the artifacts and releasing Annabelle. That one mistake unleashes chaos. Multiple spirits and entities tied to other cursed objects come alive, including the ferryman, the bride, and a haunted samurai armor. At the center of it all is Annabelle, who manipulates fear to weaken her targets. Judy, Mary Ellen, and Daniela face a night of escalating terror as they try to survive. What makes this film unique is its framing. Instead of the Warrens leading the battle, it's their child and her babysitters. Evil finds its way into the family's private life, proving nowhere is safe. Thematically, Daniela's grief is a parallel to the Mullins in Annabelle creation. Both show how loss can open doors to evil when desperate people seek answers in the wrong places. Daniela's decision to meddle with the museum wasn't rooted in malice, but in longing, and that vulnerability was enough to unleash Annabelle's power. Judy's role is particularly significant. Throughout the film, it's revealed that she inherited her mother's clairvoyant abilities, seeing and sensing spirits. While this makes her a target, it also expands the lore of the Warren family. Evil doesn't just surround Ed and Lorraine because of their work. Their bloodline is tied to the supernatural. Judy's gift foreshadows that the Warrens' fight against darkness could carry into the next generation. By the end, Annabelle is recontained, but the message is clear. She doesn't need to escape to wreak havoc. Just being near her is enough to awaken other forces. The Curse of La Llorona, 2019. While not a direct chapter in the Warrens' case files, The Curse of La Llorona exists on the edges of the Conjuring Universe. Set in 1973 Los Angeles, it tells the story of Anna Tate Garcia, a widowed social worker who unknowingly unleashes a vengeful spirit onto her family. The entity is La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman, a figure drawn from Mexican folklore. Centuries earlier, she drowned her own children in a jealous rage and then herself, cursed to wander the earth forever, preying on other children to replace her lost ones. When Anna intervenes in what seems to be a case of child neglect, she inadvertently brings La Llorona's curse onto her own kids, Chris and Samantha. The haunting escalates quickly. Eerie cries in the night, ghostly claw marks, and repeated attempts by La Llorona to drag the children into water. Anna turns to a priest for help, and this is where the film ties into the wider Conjuring lore. Father Perez, the same priest who appeared in Annabelle 2014, references his earlier battle with the cursed doll, explaining how objects or entities can act as conduits for evil. By invoking Annabelle, the movie quietly places itself within the Conjuring timeline. However, unlike films centered on the Warrens or Valak, The Curse of La Llorona is more of a side story. The Warrens don't appear, and the connection is more spiritual than direct. It's less about continuing the overarching narrative and more about showing that evil manifests in many cultures and forms. The Conjuring universe isn't confined to New England farmhouses or European abbeys. In the end, Anna and her children survive, but La Llorona's curse remains unresolved, her cries echoing into the night. Evil, once again, is never truly banished.
I condemn you back to hell!
The Conjuring 2, 2016, after cementing their reputation with the Perron case in The Conjuring, Ed and Lorraine Warren are called overseas to investigate what would become one of their most famous cases, the Enfield poltergeist in London, 1977. On the surface, it appears to be the haunting of a single mother, Peggy Hodgson, and her 4 children. But as the case unfolds, it becomes clear that something much darker than a typical restless spirit is at play: the return of Valak. The haunting begins when 11-year-old Janet Hodgson starts experiencing terrifying phenomena. Furniture moves on its own, knocks echo through the house, and Janet herself appears possessed by the ghost of an old man named Bill Wilkins, the previous tenant who died in the house. His voice, growling through Janet's small body, insists, "This is my house." The media, skeptics, and even neighbors initially dismiss it as a hoax, but the escalating danger forces the Warrens into the picture. For Lorraine, however, the Enfield case carries personal stakes. Earlier in the film, she has visions of Ed's death, and each time, the image of a terrifying nun appears. Longtime viewers recognize this as Valak, still haunting her psyche since the events of the nun. Lorraine interprets these visions as warnings, a glimpse of the future where Ed may be killed. When the Warrens arrive in England, they discover that the spirit of Bill Wilkins isn't the true source of the haunting at all. He's being manipulated, a puppet on Valak's strings. This is a crucial revelation in the Conjuring universe. Valak often works by twisting and amplifying the energy of weaker spirits, using them as camouflage. By hiding behind Bill, the demon conceals its true identity while further tormenting Janet and breaking down the Hodgson family's faith. The investigation escalates when Janet is fully possessed. At one point, she's levitated and nearly killed, the house itself bending to Valak's will. For Ed and Lorraine, it's not just about saving the Hodgsons anymore. It's about confronting the same demonic force that has been stalking them for years. The turning point comes when Lorraine realizes that knowing the demon's name grants power over it. Throughout the film, she's been tormented by visions and nightmares, each one leaving fragments of the name in her subconscious. In a moment of clarity, she recognizes the truth. The nun's name is Valak. Speaking it aloud strips the demon of its power, forcing it back into the shadows. This revelation is both thematic and theological. In Catholic tradition, names carry deep spiritual weight. To name something is to define it, to claim authority over it. Lorraine, a devout Catholic and clairvoyant, uses her faith not as a weapon of violence, but as a declaration of truth. By speaking Valak's name, she reclaims her agency and protects her family, reversing the power dynamic that had haunted her since her first visions. Ed's role is equally important. While Lorraine battles Valak spiritually, Ed physically risks his life, climbing into the Hodgson home as it falls apart. His near-death aligns perfectly with Lorraine's visions, but because she conquers Valak by name, she's able to save him at the very last moment. What could have been a fatal prophecy instead becomes proof of faith and resilience. From a broader Conjuring Universe perspective, The Conjuring 2 serves as the climax of Valak's presence in the timeline. First introduced chronologically in The Nun, Valak planted seeds of fear in Lorraine's visions in The Conjuring, briefly lingered in the shadows during Annabelle creation and The Nun 2, and now reveals its ultimate goal: to destroy the Warrens by attacking their faith and their family.
The Hodgson case isn't random. It's another chess move in Valak's long game. There's also a recurring theme of family and generational bonds. Just as Carolyn Perron's motherhood was tested in the first Conjuring, here we see Peggy Hodgson's maternal strength contrasted against Valak's corruption. Peggy's children become pawns, but her perseverance mirrors Lorraine's. Both women must hold their families together under impossible supernatural pressure. By the film's end, the Warrens return home with another artifact for their collection, the zoetrope colloid belonging to Janet. Yet the real legacy of this case isn't an object, but knowledge. Lorraine has faced her darkest vision and triumphed. She knows Valak's name, and by naming the demon, she's both exposed its nature and armed herself for the future. The final takeaway is profound. Evil thrives in secrecy and manipulation, whether through Bill Wilkins' ghost or through fear itself. But when confronted with faith, love and truth, even a powerful demon like Valak can be forced to retreat. The Enfield haunting might have been solved, but Valak's presence lingers, reminding us that darkness never truly disappears. It only waits for another opening.
The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, 2021. By the early 1980s, Ed and Lorraine Warren are no strangers to possession cases. But this one is different. It's not just about saving a family from a haunting. It's about confronting the reality that evil can be empowered by human choices, not just restless spirits. The film opens with the exorcism of a young boy, David Glatzel. The Warrens are called in to assist as the Catholic Church attempts to drive out a demon tormenting him. The exorcism is chaotic, violent, and nearly fatal until Arne Johnson, David's sister's boyfriend, intervenes. In desperation, Arne invites the demon to take him instead. It's a moment that changes everything. Soon after, Arne begins experiencing hallucinations and violent fits. These culminate in a horrific crime. He stabs his landlord, Bruno Sals, to death. When arrested, Arne becomes the first person in American history to claim "the devil made me do it" as a legal defense. What might seem like a bizarre excuse to the outside world is something the Warrens know all too well. Demonic influence is very real. As Ed and Lorraine investigate, they uncover something larger than a random possession. This isn't just a demon latching on to Arne by chance. Instead, the case is tied to an occultist, a woman who deliberately cursed the Glatzels through a satanic totem. Her goal? To spread chaos, death, and destruction by binding demons to human hosts. This marks a critical shift in the Conjuring universe. Up until now, hauntings often began with accidents, families moving into haunted homes, dolls being used as conduits, or demons feeding on grief. But here we see the intentional hand of human evil collaborating with the demonic. The occultist is part of a larger web tied to the Disciples of the Ram, the same cult introduced in Annabelle, 2014. This connection confirms that human worshippers of darkness actively invite demonic forces into the world, blurring the line between supernatural horror and human choice.
Throughout the case, Lorraine's clairvoyance once again proves essential. She follows psychic visions of ritual sites, tracing the occultist's actions back to her altar. Meanwhile, Ed, still weakened from a heart attack earlier in the film, struggles physically but never loses his faith. Their dynamic here shows the Warrens at their most vulnerable, yet also their most determined. The climax comes when Lorraine confronts the occultist directly. The woman's power is strong, but ultimately her downfall is the same as every force of evil the Warrens have faced: the corruption of love. The curse can only succeed if it destroys the bonds of family and faith. Lorraine refuses to let that happen. With Ed's support, she breaks the occultist's hold, destroying the altar and ending the curse. From a thematic perspective, The Devil Made Me Do It is about the danger of human complicity. Demons are terrifying, yes, but what makes them truly dangerous is when people open doors for them. The occultist, much like the cultists in Annabelle, represents humanity's willingness to aid darkness in exchange for power. It's a reminder that evil doesn't always sneak in. Sometimes it's invited. In the end, Arnie survives the trial, serving prison time, but ultimately building a life with Debbie, his girlfriend. His case reminds us that possession isn't just a horror trope. It was a documented legal defense, showing how blurred the lines between faith, law, and fear became in this era. For the Warrens, this case expands their legacy. No longer are they just paranormal investigators solving hauntings. Now they're confronting organized occultism, a battle not only against demons, but against people who choose to serve them.
Daniela!
Our nerdy thoughts. And there you have it, the entire Conjuring universe laid out in chronological order, from Valak's first appearance in a Romanian abbey, to Annabelle's cursed journey through multiple families, to the Warrens' most famous cases. It all forms one chilling tapestry of interconnected hauntings. At the center of it all are Ed and Lorraine Warren. Whether they're confronting Bathsheba in Rhode Island, Valak in England, or an occultist in Connecticut,
Their faith and determination have been the thread tying this universe together. Every cursed artifact in their room, every family they've tried to save, and every vision Lorraine has endured has built toward a legacy of battling back the darkness. And now, with The Conjuring Last Rites releasing this September, it feels like the saga is coming full circle. We don't know yet exactly what case the Warrens will face in their final outing, but given the title, it's safe to expect something deeply personal, perhaps even the ultimate test of their faith. Looking back, it's clear this universe has never just been about jump scares or haunted houses. It's been about the cost of facing evil, the sacrifices made in the name of love, and the thin line between the living and the damned. So as we prepare for the last chapter, one question remains. Will the Warrens finally put these spirits to rest, or will evil have the final word?
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.